Hello, I welcome all of you who has joined us. This is the Media Center Ukraine of Ukrinform, which is going on with its work, the 229th day of the fight for our freedom. And now we will be speaking about the consequences of the renations which were inflicted by Russia and which our country is living through because of the Russian missiles for 2 days already. So we're speaking with Oleksandr Khorunzhyi, press officer of the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. Hello, Oleksandr. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Hello, everyone. So let us now speak about the consequences and the work which, as far as we understand, is still going on. What has taken place? What are the consequences of yesterday's and today's shellings? On the 10th of October, we had the mass shellings, the missile strikes by Russian Federation, the consequences of which were mostly the objects of critical infrastructure hit in 13 regions and Kyiv city. There were 51 fires there. In fact, all of the fires are now being extinguished, and the energy sector employees are working on the recovery of the energy or power supply. As of 10 p.m. yesterday, we did not have power in more than 1,300 settlements all over Ukraine. Now this figure is 180. This is the colossal volume of work by the energy sector employees, the rescuers, and the communal services employees. We thank them for that. As of the involvement of the staff, we had more than 1,000 people involved and 120 units of the main and special firefighters and rescue equipment. During the missile strikes, as of 12 p.m., we have the figures about the deceased. 20 people were died, 108 were wounded. 205 objects were damaged, in particular 45 buildings, 30 multi-storied buildings, and other objects in different spheres, in particular critical infrastructure. As of now, our units are providing with power supply the objects of social sphere, in particular hospitals, and the objects of critical infrastructure. We have found out we've installed 25 power generators of different capacity for the people who are now in the hospitals, for instance, could get the power supply. And also, in particular, there were psychologists of the State Emergency Services working in the shelters. We were providing psychological help and support, and mostly working with children and elderly. Now everybody is in panic state, so psychological help is very important as well. This role is played by our psychologists of the State Emergency Service. And also I'd like to say that as a consequence of these strikes, partially, the power supply was cut in 15 regions. As I already mentioned, in fact, 180 settlements so far don't have power supply, where there still can be some of the blackouts. So if we speak about the today's shellings, we know that Lviv region, Ivano-Frankivsk region, Vinnytsia region, Zaporizhia region are under shelling. What is taking place there now? I cannot make public the information which is about the separate regions, about Lviv, Vinnytsia regions. I can only tell about Zaporizhia. I can speak about that because some time passed. Today we had the civil object under fire. There was the fire, and the area of fire was approximately 100 square meters. The rescuers extinguished it. Unfortunately, a guard at the place of this object died. As far as I understand, there are still rescuing works ongoing as of now. Yes, the works are ongoing, And we know about the consequences of the shellings on the 8th and 9th of October. So now we've sent there some of the additional combined unit of the State Emergency Service of 50 people who are helping taking away the rubble and to provide the emergency restoration works, in particular the infrastructure objects. We're also involving volunteer organizations for them to help us to restore and take away the rubble and debris. We've organized food at the places of the works, so people are uniting to overcome the consequences of Russian aggression, as it used to be in other cities like Trostianets and Borodyanka, when we had to involve people, when people were just coming and helping to take away the rubble. We understand that the challenges are multiple, and your service is working in the incredible and just emergency state. What is taking place at the deoccupied Kharkiv region? I know that you don't stop your work there in spite of the shellings in other regions. What's the situation there? As of Kharkiv region, we have the constant work of the combined unit of the State Emergency Service, more than 200 people. The vast majority of those people are pyrotechnicians, because the territories, the areas, turned out to be, according to our calculations, I think that there will be a certain part of minings, but it exceeded any of our calculations, because the enemy mined, in fact, all of the objects of infrastructure. Those are, of course, the gas supply pipelines and water pipelines. So to restore power supply and any other critically important services like gas and water supply, we need to demine those objects first. So now we've focused a big amount of support from the pyrotechnical units in Kharkiv region. They are the best, and they're conducting this demining work. Those are the units from all over Ukraine. Every day, in fact, they demine at least 1,000 to 1,500 of ammunition and explosive devices just on the territory of Chuhuyev, Izum and Balaklia areas. The work is just enormous, but it cannot be done as quickly as we'd like it to be, because the enemy is using modern types of mines like POM-3. This is the mine which is working remotely. It identifies the movements of the human being. So they're used together with the wire traps and mines of different types and anti-tank mines. So besides that, there are trap mines. So the pyrotechnicians need to decipher those Russian riddles, and gradually they need to move on. Well, of course, now we need a powerful pyrotechnical equipment which could help demine a huge area of Kharkiv region. I mean the vehicles of mechanized demining. And of course, we now address the international organizations and donor countries, which we do hope will provide us with those vehicles for us to speed up the demining process of these territories, because lots of areas are mined. I'd like to drive your attention to the fact that the enemy is using, in such towns like Balaklia and Izum, the prohibited mines by all of the conventions. These types of ammunition like PFM-1, they are also called butterfly mines. They are really very multiple, so the pyrotechnicians have found out 35 to 40 mines which have to be destroyed. It's impossible to demine them. They're very small, they are just not noticed in the grass, so we address to the people not to get to the forests, not to get to the fields, not to get to the sideways of the roads, and to be as cautious as possible. They need to demine those mines just exploding. them. Dear colleagues, are there any questions, please? Hello, Maria Honcharu, Ukreinform. The first question. Yesterday you said that among the affected, because of the attacks of Russia on Monday, there are children. Do you have any precise data about children affected by the shellings? Well, this is not the question to the State Emergency Service. That's more for the Ministry of Healthcare. I will not answer, just not to have any discrepancies with the information. So please get to the National Police and to the Ministry of Healthcare. One more question about the yesterday's attacks of Russia. Have any rescuers been affected? If yes, then how many? We don't have any data about the rescuers who were affected by the events of the 10th and 11th. We don't have any data like that. Any other questions, friends? Oleksandr, today we all heard the State Emergency Service signal, alert. What is it about, and how often we will hear it? Whether we will hear it when we understand that there is the threat of mass shooting or shelling. Of course, we have tested the system by the technology of cell broadcast. You all had the opportunity to get acquainted with it during the month. Some people disliked it, of course, but those are the requirements for the system to work as the clock. So for people to get notifications, specifically in case of a threat, it's really important. The advantage of this system was already listed. The notifications which emerge and appear very quickly with short pieces of advice, and they come above all of the notifications the cell phones can have, and they're very loud. Of course, we will use this system. It showed its efficiency in the West. So we're taking the best practices from the West and we implement it in the Ukrainian reality of today. So we are not only speaking about the air raid alerts or the threats of shellings. Here we are also speaking about the emergencies and warnings about the emergencies. First of all, during the disasters and emergencies, contingencies of the technogenic or natural character, that is flooding or chemical danger and so on. I thank you that you've joined our air today. I will remind you we had Oleksandr Khorunzhyi, press officer of the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. Dear friends, I remind you that our next briefing will take place at 3:30 p.m. We'll have the air with Mykola Povoroznik, first deputy head of the Kyiv city-state administration, and we'll be speaking about the security measures in the capital city. Stay with us.